Hi, everybody. Here are some notes on Chapter 8, Development of Small Group Roles. So, in a small group communication process, every person has an important role to play. If we're dealing with a small group, the number of people is limited, and those roles would be limited too. Now, sometimes one person may be acting as the group leader, the group researcher, the group recorder, but usually those roles are assigned to different individuals, and often those roles would rotate. Let's say in our department meetings, the secretary always takes notes and she takes minutes and she distributes those minutes. But in other groups that I participate, sometimes the role of the secretary or the recorder would be rotating. So Guran and Hirokawa in 1983 describe groups as social systems with particular goals of making a decision or solving a problem, right? So it is a social system that communicates within itself and communicates within an external audience or constituency. The functional approach to roles means, according to Ben and Sheets in 1948, seeing them as the communicative messages that members send to others about who they are and what function they serve in the group. Another way to define the roles is to look at them as assignments. Beebe Masterson, 2003, suggested that group members engage in communication to reduce uncertainty about group work, while at the same time evaluating other group members' communicative behaviors. So, regarding different roles a person can play in a small group, here are some general propositions. First, those group roles are learned behaviors. A person can become a good leader during the span of the group's work, or a person can learn how to be a good leader by attending courses, by reading books. Both assigned roles and emerging roles are they require some learning aspects. Second, the self-perception, the self-concept of each group member affects the role behavior, and people usually establish their identity over time. The group helps each member establish an identity. The group will develop a good leader. The leader will come up as a self-nominee or a nominee or an elected leader or an assigned leader, but over time, their self-perception, their self-evaluation, combined with the influence of the group, will become something more solid, and it will evolve. So basically, in this course, we're looking at small group communication as a process, as a set of processes in which individuals communicate among each other and as a group. And the third point is that each member of a group can play more than one role at the same time, at different phases of the socialization process and in the process of communication in general. Group members can perform different types of roles. If you look at the link that I added to our lecture notes, you will see that according to standard agenda procedures for small group communication, there are 4 general types of roles that people get assigned, and those would be what we will learn to call formal roles, as we will see in a moment. Those roles are leader, recorder, critic, and participant. So during the time that the group exists, somebody may be a participant but also a critic at the same time, and somebody may be a recorder and a group participant at the same time. So participants are everywhere. Every group member is a participant. Say, when I was serving as department chair, I did have the right to vote. That meant that I had the same responsibilities as other members of the group. So I was a participant and a leader in the faculty. The development of roles starts with information seeking. Each person looks for ways to learn how to perform the role properly, and learning, reading, asking questions, gathering information, knowledge about the job, about the task, about the problem. Then soliciting feedback. There would be positive feedback, which is helpful because it establishes the good patterns of optimal behavior. Then there would be negative feedback or critical feedback that allows to highlight the weaknesses and allows to propose improvements to the members' behavior, the participant's role. And finally, ambiguous feedback, which is not very helpful because it may dishearten members from taking on new roles. It offers no help. So if it's critical, it may be unpleasant, but if it's ambiguous, it's just nothing. The types of roles are formal. Formal roles include leader, recorder, critical advisor, and the fourth type is just participant. So the leader moves the group towards its goal and works with external audiences. The recorder, that role may be rotating. The recorder takes notes, minutes. Critical advisor, it's the devil's advocate usually, looks at potential weaknesses, and for example, if there's an external agency that would be auditing the group's work, the critical advisor looks at things from the perspective of the auditors and asks questions looking for weaknesses that the group needs to strengthen in order to be ready for an external audit. It's just one example. Among informal roles, there are task leader, social emotional leader, information provider, central negative, and tension releaser. Every person, every member of the group can play multiple roles again, especially when these are informal roles. And those types of roles are self-explanatory, and I also suggest reading about them in your textbook, looking at the case study presented at the beginning of the chapter, just to say that there might be more than one of each, because even in a small group you can have several tasks that people perform, and each individual can end up leading one task or another, taking the initiative to do work in a smaller group or individually. So those are the informal roles, and in the example in the chapter, there's always someone who tries to release the tension, tries to turn everything into a joke, or bring people together and act as a moderator. Finally, people may play deviant roles. Those are negative and disruptive individual influences. According to Ben and Sheets, again in 1948, those types of roles that are considered disruptive and negative, in one word, they're deviant: airhead, aggressor, blocker, clown, dominator, egghead, recognition seeker, self-confessor, special pleader, and whiner. So again, self-explanatory words. Let's take one, for example, egghead, who thinks that he's smarter or she's smarter than everyone else. The clown, making jokes every time, seeking attention. Aggressor, obviously, not a good thing to show aggression in a group, but it unfortunately happens a lot of times. So how do group members and groups as a whole deal with deviant members? They can delay making a decision, and we know from our previous chapters, especially I think the earlier chapters, chapter 1, there are sanctions that groups may impose on members who break the rules, who break the policies of a group. So you can delay sanctions, you can delay a decision and just hope that the person will come to senses. Or if it's time to act, then you can engage in persuasive tactics. You can talk to that person. You can offer some criticism or even verbal aggression, which is not always a good solution, but sometimes if a person is aggressive, the answer can be aggression back. So those would be in the form of sanctions or threats to fire from the group. Finally, it may come to some action that the group may have to exclude such a member who's deviant. And we hope that it never comes to that. But in every class that I've taught where there was group work, there was always somebody who's either loafing or unavailable. And many times in the past, people have been engaging in conflict because of different schedules, different attitudes, personality traits. We all know those terms now. We can say that personalities affect the group dynamic, of course, personalities, attitudes. But the teacher in those cases is the one who can make sanctions, who can take measures against a group member who does not perform. In real life, outside of class, the group will have the potential to actually fire a member and then make it known that this member was not performing properly. So with this, I think we will conclude chapter 8. There will be a quiz, again, 5 questions, the usual. And there will soon be another portion of our assignment that you're doing as a group. So look for that. And until then, stay tuned.